All right, everybody, welcome back to the Best Hour of Your Day podcast. Fern here with two of my favorite people. One of my favorite couples. Tosh and I talked about you in the podcast that I did with Tosh. So if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, go back and listen to it. But Chris and Andrea Smith, owners of CrossFit Trident in the DC area. And but I wanted to have them on the show because they're unique in a lot of different ways. So they own the gym together, but they also own multiple other businesses, a wealth of knowledge. Both have been on seminar staff for many, many years. So just, when I think I'm busy, I think about you guys. And then I feel like a chump and I'm like, I should get back to work. So I know you guys are both super busy and we were chatting before this and things are going really well. So thank you guys for hopping on the call.
Awesome, man. I'm kind of excited to be here. I ain't gonna lie.
I can never say no to Fern.
So I tell people this all the time. The podcast is purely selfish for me. Like I just like to talk to people, and like I always enjoy talking to you guys because you guys have like so much energy. I don't know how to deal with it. Like it's like
it's infectious and contagious at the same time, which is
nice.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. But first and foremost, how long have you guys had the affiliate?
We are ramping up on our
closing in on 10.
Yeah, closing on 10th year in May.
Yeah, we affiliated in I think January actually of 2010.
Yeah.
So and we didn't.
I thought you guys were older than us. We're just a couple months ahead of you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you guys are ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, just by like a couple months.
Military contracts that we were teaching under another affiliate name that Chris had partnered with that. A friend of his, and we had those actually for a few years before we opened the gym.
Okay.
But that's not an active affiliate any longer.
Yeah.
So technically.
Not officially on our timeline.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
got it.
Rolling on a decade.
Got it. That's awesome. So just a little bit more background. So Chris was active duty in the SEAL teams for many, many years. Andrea, how long have you been in the coffee business?
Ooh. I almost don't want to say because it'll show you my true ancient
Chris and Andrea they're both 35 years old. They're both 35 years old.
It is coming on 28 years.
That's cool. Yeah. So you own two coffee shops in addition to owning one of the larger gyms in the DC area. And Chris does some stuff on the government contracting. So anybody who is trying to figure out some nuggets from a business standpoint, you don't go anywhere or just put this thing on pause before you go.
Yeah.
But, I learned everything the hard way. So I can tell you all the ways not to.
So in all seriousness, I wanted to have you guys both on the podcast because I always enjoy our conversations, Andrea, because I too have learned most things the hard way. But I think that's the most valuable, right? Like I don't find the people who crushed it the first time to be super useful. Like there's no lessons learned there. That's just maybe luck, maybe they might just be an outlier, but
and it's not scalable for them either because they don't have the experiences of making the wrong decisions 1,000 times over. They're like, oh, this is so easy. I can do it again. I'm like, well, maybe not.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't as easy to replicate as I thought.
Yeah.
So let's start with you guys. So you started early in the CrossFit kind of actually before the boom, if we will, because I was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
But you guys were, how many affiliates were there in the kind of Alexandria DC area when you guys started?
There weren't a ton. Like in Alexandria, there was actually, there were two because I forgot Outlaw was here too.
Yep.
They were literally right down the street from you guys, right?
Yeah.
Literally,
yeah. And CrossFit Old Town was very close to Outlaw too. So those were the only two in Alexandria at the time. Mm-hmm. And then there were some in the DC area, but a ton came up. Probably by 2012, 2013, I would say that there was like a huge, huge amount.
Yeah.
But still not a ton in the Alexandria where we live. Like there's Old Town, which is this kind of historic area. And then the city of Alexandria extends a little bit out from that. And within the city of Alexandria limits, there's still not a ton. Just I think because there aren't that many appropriate spaces.
And the real estate's really expensive here too. Yeah. So the buy-in it's high.
Yeah, it's significant.
There are 5 CrossFits within
what, a mile and a half or 2 miles within 2 miles.
Which a lot of people think that's close, but as you kind of creep into the Beltway, a mile and a half is far as
exactly.
You know, so it's kind of like the New York area where like once it becomes more metropolitan, then proximity becomes less of an issue, just because the
traffic of people inside that mountain have to support.
Exactly. But I do. So you guys, when we've talked before, I mean, I think your gym at one point like peaked over 600. I don't know where you guys are now, but considerably more than the average CrossFit gym. And kind of where I wanted to start with this is some of the things that you guys have learned over the years as far as managing a large community, and then how that relates and rolls over into dealing with large classes. Because I know it's not uncommon for you guys to have 30 people in a class.
Yeah.
Like, how do you? Most people, that their brain would explode, and I asked that question because I know you guys both seasoned trainers. And there's 30 people in those classes and you have a big community, but there's still coaching going down in those classes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons for a large volume, like a large population of athletes, at our largest number was close to 650, which is a lot of people. We had a 5,000 spaces by then?
No, like initially when we were there, I think we only had the 5,000 square feet. And then it moved up to like
10,000.
No, 7,500 because we subleased.
Oh, we subleased that back part.
About 7,500.
But
it was too big. It was too big.
Yeah, it was too many people to keep what we were trying to create. We were trying to create a fabric, a community where people felt like they got coaching. People felt they were inclusive with our tribe. They felt like they got attention. They all got the 7 touches that we talk about being good, effective coaches. But that number grew when it was at 650. It was too much, and we couldn't manage. We seem to have lost that connection with people because there were just too many people. So we
actually stopped taking members.
And we stopped taking members for a long time to get that number down to 4.
Well, like I think like we were in a pretty sweet spot, being like totally frank, as far as like the gym, like revenue being really high and being manageable. I would say our most ideal time was when we were at about 500
about
members.
500, yeah.
Now we are at over 400, which is pretty cool. We had actually, and again, I don't mind being frank and Chris, we had gotten down to probably 350 at one point. And that was about over a year ago, correct?
Yep.
And we, Chris and I actually both got back in the gym, made a ton of changes. Not changes, actually. We just kind of tightened everything up.
Yeah, righted the rudder, so to speak.
Yeah, righted the rudder. And we are now back up over 400, which is a good and sustainable place, I think, for us. Like I don't feel like we failed going from 650 down to even 350 or whatever. Like we rode the market, and nothing can grow like can continually grow like CrossFit was growing. And there's always going to be a drop off. And I think where I would have been afraid is if we had ever gotten down to like 250 or like a number that was like, wow, that's tough for us to sustain everything. It
was interesting though, being at that 650. Yes, we stopped taking members to lower our membership, but at the same time, we were talking earlier about more gyms kept populating. So there was I felt like a finite number of people that were crossfitting.
Yeah,
saturation. Now we're we're dispersing those members out to more and more gyms, and we're seeing the effect of that, which was positive for us because we were trying to bring down our membership, but as we crept down lower and lower, because more gyms were kind of getting on the market, and people were just finding spaces closer to their homes or closer to their workplaces, more convenient, right? Not necessarily about the coaching and the fabric of the gym, but more convenient, which is super important for this transit area that we live in. But I think Andrea's right. I think our sweet spot's right in that 400, 450. I think we can control that amount of people with the number of coaches we have on staff. I think that the connection is still there. We're trying to exhibit in our gym. And it's just a better feeling space, you know?
So there's for sure somebody that's listening to this and is not able to comprehend what you're saying, which is like, hey, less is more. Like, because people are looking at that, and I know somebody's like doing the math on their calculator right now. They're like, oh my God, like you forfeited how much money in monthly revenue and in a better place? Like, so how, like, what was it about that you guys decided to forfeit something in order to get more on the back end?
Think about it like your friendship circle. you can have 20 acquaintances that you're spending time with, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. You can have 5 really good friends. I would go for the latter. I would rather have 5 really good friends that I can hang out with. They know me, they can trust me, we can trust them. I would rather have that than have the 20 kind of standard by acquaintances. And that's how I feel about the gym. It's like when I come to the gym, man, you know, I know everybody's name. I know their kids. We've seen their kids grow up. Now they're in our CrossFit Teens program. We know their businesses, and I can control like that number of, like at that 400 mark, I feel like our coaching staff, myself, my wife, we can kind of control that space. When it got too big, you just saw these random people just blowing by you that you weren't connecting with.
Well, and what it does too is a lot of that, when you're at a really huge number, what we were doing and what CrossFit was doing was attracting a lot of people that really didn't want to do CrossFit.
Yeah.
So what happened is they would come in and, yeah, you're getting this revenue, but are they giving anything to the community? Not really. What it was kind of draining resources, not just physical, like space, but like, you know, emotional and mental resources are going to people that are not really committed to being a part of your community. And so, I mean, you could argue that, hey, you can make them a part of your community. And some of them you would, but there was a large percentage were just riding that wave. And this is probably going to sound like I'm pigeonholing, but I am a woman that's going to be 47 next month. But there's a very fickle part of the fitness market that I would say is largely driven by women, actually anywhere from like early 20s up to, I'd say, early 50s, that is a pretty fickle, and like they're going to ride whatever is the big new thing, you know? And so
they're looking for trendy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against, I'm not being negative about them, but if you spend a lot of your resources and energy on trying to attract and maintain that population, you're kind of like chasing something that is not good to chase, because by nature, they're not going to stay. Like as soon as something new comes out, they're going to move on to that. So obviously, if you can convert people into like being part of your community and like, oh, they become a lifelong CrossFitter, that's great. But if you're just trying to get these massive numbers, I just feel like it really does affect the quality. And as far as money goes, like you said, people are like, how would you get rid of that much revenue? Other mistake that we really made opening up when we opened is Chris calls them drug deals. We have a lot of drug deals, a lot of super cheap memberships, free memberships, or we call them $0 memberships. And so our ACV, our average client value was lower. Now we took a hit financially in our gross for sure. And even in not just our gross, in our net.
Yeah.
But now where we've climbed back up in the last year, the gym is almost, I wouldn't say it's not as profitable as our peak, but it's pretty dang profitable.
Yeah.
And because we've got a higher ACV and things are just more manageable, and our retention is better, because what you look at with a smaller amount of people, like one that you can that fits in your model, they're going to stay and be happy. You know, they're going to feel connected. They're going to tell their friends. So then the people that join are people that are joining because of what you offer, not just because, oh, that sounds cool, CrossFit, I'm going to try it.
You know, it's funny. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's funny because we were talking a little bit about revenue. And when I look at my membership platform, I look at my numbers, I don't often go to the bottom line where it's the revenue. I go for, what's our retention like? How many people are staying more than 3 months?
Yeah.
How many people are staying more than, than 6 months? Oh my God, I've got guys that have been here for 9 years.
Yeah.
You know, far more impactful for me, far more viable than what the bottom line for the number is of what you're making in a month, you know?
So on that note, let's just go right there, because I think that's this is something that I personally switched gears on, embarrassingly, so 6 months ago.
Right.
Because I got something I want to come back to, but like, what have you guys found to be effective? Or is there anything in particular that you do that is retention based, like within the community, that you guys have found to be effective?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I think there's one thing that people don't talk about, but there's a fine line between doing what's always worked and being stuck in like an old era.
Way, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think one thing that we've made a shit ton of mistakes, make no mistake about that. But one thing we've done well is I think we've always been able to kind of hold true to what we believe, but also be like, hey, you know, if the market's changing, we need to kind of be accommodating that to some degree and be open to new ways of doing things, and without completely changing the fabric of what we're doing, you know. And I think that is a way that we've been able to maintain retention. Like an example would be,
that's what I was going to ask you as an example. Yeah, like what?
Like open gym is a thing that, you know, gyms used to hate, right? They're like,
I still hate.
They're like, I hate open gym. We don't want people coming doing their secret program. They're not part of the community. Blah 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 blah. And I remember I was the one that pushed it. I'm like, you know what? People want to do it, fine. We're going to charge the same membership. It's not a cheaper deal because they're using this. They actually are using more resources in a way because they're usually there longer.
They're actually getting more convenience for the same dollar figure, which is backwards from the way everything else works. Like if you want more convenience, you generally pay more.
Yeah.
And so we didn't change our prices, but we're set up to where we can have open gym. And you know, the more we opened it, an interesting thing happened. I think it increases retention because people love knowing that we have it. And yes, we have a small amount of, I mean, my thought was, let's say a couple extra grand a month, because even if it's only, 10, 15 people, whatever, that wouldn't join otherwise. But what it really provides as far as retention is people use it every now and again, or they like knowing that it's there. And
that's what I was going to ask you is ever since we did it, I actually see less people use it.
Fewer people. Yeah. I bet you out of our total membership, we have 10 people
that consistently
use open gym.
But
so it's like 1%? Rough? Yeah. I mean,
it's 10 people. But some of the members that, I missed this workout, or I want to work on a little bit more strength, or I want to work on a little bit more mobility, whatever it is, they have that opportunity now. Our gym is kind of set up, they can do that really well. And that's value added there's zero cost to us, but it's huge value added. And I resisted for
I pushed hard.
8 years. 8 years.
7. I got you at 7.
Well, so that's one thing that I've I guess matured into over the years is trying to be less rigid without compromising my values, which is like, hey, we can offer that and still keep the things that we think are important.
Yeah.
And that's a hard concept to wrap your brain around at first. You're like, no, if we do this, we forfeit everything. Like we're just going to just throw it all out the window, but that's not the case.
It's funny. One of the values, like I'm not a big, we don't have rules on our gym walls. Like the community has established a guideline of rules, right? And I told the people that are open gym, I'm like, hey man, check it out. I'm giving you guys this as a gift. If I found barbells out, chalk out, gym looking like a piece of crap, I'm going to take this from you. And it's interesting because those guys and those girls police themselves.
And
other people, they're like, hey man, this is for us. Don't leave your stuff hanging around here.
Don't you blow it for the group.
Yeah, exactly.
People quit though. Like Chris yelled at one guy's girlfriend because she was doing some kind of back rack overhead lunges with no plates and just threw the barbell on the ground.
Chains on the bar.
With chains.
You get a little dose of Chris Smith right
people
there.
all over the internet were just like,
oh yeah, exactly.
Her boyfriend quit the next day. I was like, dude, you shouldn't have been so harsh.
I'm like, no, I should have been that harsh because you know what we don't have? People throwing stuff around the gym. And I'm not gonna let one person ruin my entire fabric, what I believe in.
And another example, I think, another couple of examples along the same line are CrossFit Kids. Being honest, it's never been revenue producing for us because paying the coaches, the coach to athlete ratio, it's never been revenue producing, but we've always done it. And what we did over the years is we kept modifying it. And we got to this place now in the last 2 years where it's like, hey, we have it at 9 a.m. So it's in conjunction with a class that parents can go to at the same time. 9 to 9:15, we do free play. So the kids get to just go crazy and whatever. Yeah. And then the class is 45 minutes. And even though it's not income producing, I think it is because it leads to retention because parents love being able to come with their kids and have that. We had a teens class, same thing. I didn't want to do it. Chris pushed this because he's like, hey, we have that. Right now we can teach every age group except for teens. We have kids, we have seniors, we have everyone else, and we have kids that have outgrown the kids and they don't have anywhere to go. We're not offering that. So we do that. And again, not revenue producing. Childcare. Did not want to really have childcare because it's a hassle to hire someone for an hour. But that has been a really great thing because it's just, even if it's only 5 moms that are regularly using it, just to know that it's there and to like, it's added value. And I think those are the kind of, like, if you're always just looking at the bottom line, you
miss a lot of
you're
things.
You're going to miss some of those things that I think lead to retention.
Yeah. The childcare thing is something that I think is super valuable too. Like, and it is, I don't know that anybody that is running a net positive on childcare.
Yeah.
Like, we're definitely not. Like, we just like to not try to lose money on it, but
same here.
But even it's one of those pieces of the business, at least in my experience in our gym, is that if everybody that used it left, it would not be a huge hit to the bottom line, but it does add tremendous value to the gym. So it's like we keep it because those people are members that we want to keep because they're a huge part of the community.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I think most people look at it and be like, childcare is a game changer. Your gym's going to explode. And I'm like, not really. Like, it's not that. Not that
you could use it enough. Like we only offer it honestly 3 days a week. At our 9:30 class. And it's funny, like we had a provider that was like, oh, I can do 5 days a week, but I've just been in business long enough and managing people. And I was just like, you know what? It's hard enough to cover 3 days a week on a regular basis. Like, it's always better to add, like, people don't like having stuff taken away. You shouldn't add something thinking, oh, we'll test it out for a month, because people are going to get pissed even if they don't use it. Yeah. So I think it's better to like manage expectations and here's a
lesson learned I thought for the childcare, because again, where I was thinking about taking it away because it was just becoming problematic. It was just like a dumping point for some of the kids. When I sat down with like the moms, I'm like, hey, this program isn't working for me. What can we do? And we had a little meeting with 9 or 11 moms, whatever it is, and they came up with the solution. Right? We came up with the price point. We came up with a few people that could watch the kids. And when our paid person doesn't, they're not going to be there for that day, one of the moms will not work out and watch the kids. I'm like, well, this program is valuable. You know? Yes. If it's not making any money, I don't know if it is or not. I do know it is. It's not making any money. But it's the value there that you see the moms drop their kids off for that little hour of the day. They get a workout, and you look at their faces, they're just like, thank you. Thank you for giving me this hour that I can just have. So they spend hours in the gym just enjoying the day.
Yeah.
I be a part of that. And it's cool.
We found a sweet spot. And I got this from Damon. I think his last name is Jones. He was out in Utah. He did a bunch of stuff with the regionals for quite some
Damon Stewart.
Okay.
No.
Damon.
Who used to own Wasatch CrossFit.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Because he used to drop in. His wife has family in Virginia Beach, and he used to drop into the box all the time. And I was in that spot where I could not, like, childcare was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, just run a co-op. So ever since we have run a co-op version of childcare, and all the way we run it is if moms want to participate in the co-op, all they have to do is volunteer something between 3 to 4 hours a month. So maybe one day a week. Right. We waive their childcare fee, and I give them a discount on their membership. And I am, for the most part, vehemently opposed to discounts. But this is one of the ones where I concede, because I'm like, that adds value. They're happy, and they manage all of it. Like anything that comes up with childcare, I'm like, I don't touch childcare. Like,
it's your co-op.
You guys solve that problem if you want it. Yeah. I'm giving you free reign to literally do it however you want, and it works out perfectly. Like, I have no idea what the rules are in childcare, but I know that it works.
Do you offer it just one time at 1 hour a day, one session a day, or?
No. So we offer it all the 9 a.m.s, and then we've gone back and forth between offering it at the 5 p.m.s. So I think currently we don't offer it on Friday because there's very little need for it on Fridays. Yeah. So we basically have 9 hours a week where it's available.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. But that one has been a game changer. And what we have is we have people that don't have kids that find out about the co-op who opt in, and I'm like, that's added value. That is worth
take it. Yeah, exactly.
Worth $30 to me. Like, I don't care. Goes in. So I wanted to go back to something because you guys brought it up, and it's something that I definitely have not figured out. And talking about I just lost you on video, but so you guys expanded the business and then contracted and now have found that sweet spot. And I've always struggled with anybody who has not gone through that process and said, I don't want that, because for me, I find it hard to make that statement without knowing. Like, for instance, they're like, I don't want a 300-person gym. And I always ask myself this question is like, do I not want a 300-person gym? Because I've never had one, so I don't know. Or am I saying that because I'm not skilled enough to grow to a 300-person gym? So I look at it the other way. Like, do you guys feel that you could have gotten to this spot without kind of the overstretching of the business and hit it some other way?
I think the overstretching of the business was a huge lesson. And it was early on. It was maybe, I don't remember how many years. First couple of years.
Well, we had some complicated, we have a couple of, just so that like anyone listening doesn't think, like some of the factors that I think made things different for us is we self-funded originally, and we both had other sources of income.
Yeah.
And some people are critical of that because they're like, oh, you're not all in, so you don't know what it's like to, but at the same time, we were freaking all in the sense of like, it's not like we were never at the gym, but from day one, we knew like, hey, this can't be the Chris and Andrea show all the time.
Right.
Like, we need to be able to build a team.
But to be clear, like during that time, you guys, at least from what I've talked to you guys were paying yourselves though.
Oh,
yeah. So that's different, right? So I know people, that are doing that and they're like, they don't pay themselves. That I do believe.
We ran it like a business.
Yeah.
And like from day one, when we were doing even the plan, like I remember being like, hey, all our classes have to have a value, whether we're coaching them or not. Like, we can't be like, oh, we don't have payroll, because if we're not coaching these classes, we're going to be paying someone else to coach them.
Right.
And so we have to figure that money in, or you're fooling yourself.
It's funny. So we just recorded, this podcast might go up next week, but we just recorded a podcast earlier today, me and Ackerman and Todd, and that was the episode, is paying your coaches. And that is literally exactly what I said, which is,
we still argue about that still today.
It's not a real business if there's no labor involved.
Yeah.
Like you're just,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, if you had to pay somebody, you'd go out of business, which means this thing is a farce.
Exactly. But for the grab that growing pain, I think it was super, super valuable for us, because it made me, at least me, realign what I believed in about positive impact on people. And with that large number, I lost that, but I didn't realize I lost it until I lost it. I knew we were having positive impact at a certain number, and I'm like, oh yeah. I can remember telling Andrews, like, man, I know every single person's name in this gym, up to about 274 members. Like, every single person. I could tell you everything I knew about them. It was super awesome. As it got a little bit more, you're not doing the 5:15 a.m. class, because I'm never doing that class again. I own the gym, damn it. So some people don't get to make that connection to unless you see them on a Saturday or whatever, as the numbers got bigger. But at that larger number, I felt disconnected to way too many people. And one of the rules we have in the gym, I speak to it all the time, is like 7 touches. When someone walks through our door, hey man, you can have at least seven positive interactions inside this space. And might not be just from one of our coaches, whatever, but you'll have those interactions. And I felt like we had lost some of that. Like, I see people like, oh, I go to Trident, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't even know you. You see me out on the streets. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for at all.
What's your thoughts on Dunbar's number? Because Dunbar's number says 150, but you just said 274. Like, is that because, so like, for those of you who don't know, like, Chris was a SEAL. He's an engineer. He's probably one of the smartest dudes in most rooms that he's going to sit in. He's not going to say that, but I'm going to say that. But is there something that you can do to expand that Dunbar's number of 150 as far as like getting those touches and interactions with people?
Oh, I think it's how you interact. Like you said,
in your team.
Yeah, no, I think he's talking about me,
Yeah,
just knowing
just
that
you.
many number. Yeah, I'm a super, like, not sounding douchebaggy or whatever, but my visual memory is like really, really good. I can't remember anything I read, but if I see something, I just visualize it. So, if you're really good, I think if you're a really good coach, you're looking at all those nuanced things. You're looking at the body position. You're looking at all the movement. So you see those people, and those are making connectors in your brain. So it's more than just like, oh, my name is Tom. Well, hi, Tom. My name is Chris. There's no connector there.
Yeah.
But inside this space, with that whole 7-touch rule, like, I'm engaging with all these people all the time, and I'm seeing something different every day because that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to be a really good coach, so that active engagement, I think, allowed me to remember more about the person than just a passerby. If you show me 200 strangers, yeah, I'm not going to remember 200 strangers, but the interaction and me actually caring and being passionate about helping people, you have some more buy-in there. And I think that's what kind of helps that out. So I don't know.
That's cool.
Me at least.
No, I've always been kind of resistant to the Dunbar's number because I think it's actually bigger than that. I think that's just I think that's what you could do with no effort.
Right.
But I think if you really put effort, you can do more than that.
Yeah, but look at like how people's awareness. So my wife and I are very different. Like I'll go into a space and I look around. I'm like, I'll see everything. And I know where everything is. And Andrea, love her to death, will go in there and like, where's the chair? I'm like, it's right in front of you. Like, she won't even see the chair. She'll run into it. It's because she's not a visual. She's more of a rote learner, right? So
I'm
visually,
a reader.
yeah.
I'm a reader.
Yeah.
Like, I seem dumb to him visually.
No, it's not. It's just different way. It's just different way. Like, man, I can just remember people ask me, "Oh, where's this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's in this drawer on this side of the drawer," and I just know where things are like that. So having that difference, I think, has helped me out, and that's just probably just trying to stay alive, whatever. But yeah, so it's just helped out a little bit.
I want to switch gears a little bit because I know you guys have way more experience than this with most, as far as like some kind of lessons learned with regard to leasing a building and then buying a building. Because Andrea, I know you and I have talked quite a bit when I was starting the process of setting a plan in place to buy the building, and you obviously taught me some things there. But what are some things that if somebody is getting ready to open a business, you look back at and you're like, hey, these are some musts with regard to leasing or
I learned a hard lesson. Clearly, I didn't learn it well enough because
learned it twice.
In the space of this is no shit. In the space of 2 years, I lost the opportunity to buy the building that my business was in twice in 2 years. So
why'd you lose that though?
Because I did not have first right of refusal in my lease. And a lot of owners, understandably, when you're doing a lease, it's something they don't want to give. And like, I'm not going to lie, I don't have it in the lease I just signed in the space I moved into either.
So three times now.
I got that kicked out. I got 10 more years. So
okay, got it. Okay.
But I had also just bought a commercial building finally, which was kind of like a big bucket list thing for me. But if you can in any way, I think people don't fight for it because when you're first starting a business, you're like,
you're worried about money.
Well, you're not in a growth mindset. You think you are because you're starting a business, but you're not. You're all contracted because you're like, oh God, I'm scared. I got no money. I just invested.
And you're over leveraged too. You realize like, oh my God, I'm asking for all these things. I'm asking for money. I'm asking for space. You forget about your larger picture. Your immediate picture is, I want to open my business. I want to start training clients. I want this to happen. You forget about you're opening a business, not just a hobby gym.
Yeah, you're thinking about cash flow. So it doesn't seem like an important thing to fight for in a lease. And I'm not a black and white person, and I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker every time, but I would say make a point. And also there's a lot of owners that they don't really give a shit about it's just not brought up. But if someone applies some pressure and says, hey, I want to have first right of refusal, they will allow that. So that's the first thing I would say is get first right of refusal in your lease. And
you have to trust your business too, where you're like, oh, I'm going to make enough money. I'm going to grow this business to where I can be able to buy the real estate. Where if you're in a very small myopic, mindset, you're like, oh my God, I hope I can just pay my coaches and pay the rent this month. Well, that's not going to do very well for you because you just can't see the bigger picture at the end of the road.
And what people don't understand is like when you own a building, Yeah, it's like when you buy your first house, you're just like, oh my God, I can't afford this. It feels like such a stretch. But the thing is, with leases, there's going to be escalations. In a commercial lease, you're paying the taxes anyway. You're covering all these expenses. So if you own the building, you are going to, over time, your rent is going to go down, basically. And not only that, you have an opportunity at some point to sell the business. And you're also then not only getting the revenue from the sale of the business, you're collecting rent. Or if you decide to shut the business down, you can still lease the building. You can sell the building. Like, it just gives you so much more freedom. And especially, I would say, for a CrossFit gym, it's probably one of the most important things you could do if you're doing now, because the nature of development and these types of spaces that we need for these gyms are just few and far between. Like, industrial space is being decimated, everywhere. So
I think of it almost like potentially like a forcing function, which is like, if I don't put that in there, I'm not, because for nobody that's even looked into this, if you're trying to buy a building, we could assume that it's a fairly large number, at which point you're going to need 15 to 20% down.
Right.
Yeah.
Liquid. So if it's $1 million, I'm going to need to come to the table with 200,000. And if you're not at least putting that in place to kind of push yourself outside of your comfort zone, you're like, well, how do I get $200,000? Well, I need to run a good business if I need to save $200,000. And then how long is it going to take me to do that? But then you look at it as, okay, like I want to buy my building, which has 11 units, of which I have 4. If I get to the point by myself or potentially with investors, and I do that, like, cash flow is going to increase within my CrossFit business significantly, because I run the opportunity to not have to pay rent at all.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially get paid for owning the building. So that's what I'm looking at long term, which means now I can pay like a really high level manager or like whatever to come in and run that business. So the other thing that I've really come to, because I sat down with a lawyer recently, was he was like, hey, stop personally guaranteeing these leases.
Yeah. Oh God, I've never personally guaranteed a lease.
When you start, you don't know any better. You're like, this is my only option. I don't know, it was like, you don't have to.
We had to put down a 6-month, no, was it 9 months?
I think it was 6 months.
6-month deposit.
6 months?
Yes. When we first,
I don't know any gym that could front that.
We did that because it was a pension fund that owned the building, and they were just like, you need to personally guarantee it. And the one thing I would not do, I was like, fuck you. I'm not personally guaranteeing it. And so our broker got them to, they said, okay, then we want 6 months of rent. And we were like, all right, that's what we, and it burned off. Like, we got, after 2 years, we got 2 months back. And I think
nice.
Years we got some of that money back. So it didn't sit there for 5 years. But that was just for a 5-year lease. We had to put down 6 months, but it was totally, I mean, I guess in retrospect, the personal guarantee might not have mattered, but you just
but you don't want to do that.
You never want a personal guarantee. I would never recommend, I mean, like, for buying our commercial building, you better believe I personally guarantee the shit out of everything. Like, I'm like leveraged to the hilt. But
we wanted to buy dirt, right?
But that's a different scenario, though. Like, it's different if you're going to personally guarantee a lease than it is if you're going to, like, buying.
Yeah.
There's a point. So you have to change your paradigm, your mental paradigm that says, no matter what, you're buying the building. You're either buying the building for somebody else or buying the building for yourself.
Exactly.
Right? And as Grandpa used to say, boy, buy dirt. They don't make it anymore.
I love it. So, obviously, Andrea, you have 2 coffee shops. Chris,
one is not open yet, actually. The second, we bought the building. We bought the building over a year ago, and we're just starting demo. So that's another lesson. Like,
got it.
That's cool. But you know what? So this is where we kind of differ a little bit, because it's our building still.
Yes,
We've been
exactly.
paying for this
No,
building
it's okay.
for a year. We own it. Yep. It's ours, right?
But you need to have
fast. But hey, I was going to pay for that building this year anyway, right?
But it would have been nice to have like revenue paying for it instead of just draining.
Instead of just our wallet.
And instead of me, like, now we're presently like waiting to hear on like more money that we've asked for
Yeah.
from the bank.
Can you give us some more money? So
Yeah.
this actually does. Yeah.
And they're like, well,
Yeah, but
I kind of did the song and dance. It seemed like it went well. We'll hear hopefully
But-
this week.
But that's a good lesson too, is like, hey, you know, we've grown. We've been in this, Andrew's been in the coffee business for 28 years. We've been in this CrossFit business for 10 years. So we've grown these businesses so that they're viable, so that banks are going to be able to loan us money.
Yeah.
Also,
We're less of a risk now because we've had proven track record of being successful business owners in more than one venture, not just these two, but more than one venture. So yeah, now it's a little bit easier to get money to move up to that next level of
plus,
purchasing or whatever.
and this is something that I talk to business owners, and I am fully guilty of this, and you just don't know what you don't know, which is when you start, like you're worried about making money because you don't want to pay taxes. You're like, well, I'll just run the business at initiative. And you're just like, well, that's a really dumb idea, because if at some point you're like, I want to grow, and you don't have enough capital to do, like, you're going to have to go to the bank, at which point, if you have 5 years of returns that show a loss, the bank's like, sorry, you're a liability.
All right, exactly. Yeah, the goal should be, hey, you know what? Pay taxes, but pay taxes with lots of commas. You got lots of commas?
Exactly.
You got lots of money.
Yep.
and the thing that sucks though is honestly, what's really unfortunate is they only loan money to people that have money. And actually a screw up that I did make, that I will admit to, that's highly embarrassing, is when we first opened, a friend of mine was a banker and was like, let me help you guys. Let me get an SBA loan for you. And so we went through the process. It was $50K and it was like so hard to get it. And SBA loans are guaranteed, like I think 90% is guaranteed, 80 or 90% is guaranteed by the SBA.
Gosh,
so the bank isn't on the hook for that much money. The risk is very mitigated for the bank if you do an SBA loan.
Got it.
Because the SBA is guaranteeing 80 or 90%. I can't remember which it was. I think it's 80%. So it was a $50,000 loan. And by the time we got it, we didn't need it. Like we were up and running. Like the process took forever. SBA loans take longer too. And we thought everything's cool. We're like, fine. I went to refinance my house and they had a lien on my house, essentially for $10,000 worth of risk. And my house had hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. And like, I couldn't refinance my house. We had to pay the whole loan off. Because this is what's embarrassing to admit. I had no fucking clue that they had put a lien. I signed some paperwork
that said, here, take this house for $10,000.
Oh my God.
$50,000 loan, but it was guaranteed, $40,000 of it was guaranteed by the SBA.
Yeah.
So essentially the bank, like, and so banks will always try to take as much as you will let them. And if you've never borrowed before and you don't have a ton of assets, they're less likely. So now when you have a history, it's easier to, well, you're more aware, but yeah, like anyone that's like looking for a loan or an SBA loan, like be careful that you don't do what I did.
That's super funny.
The guarantee would protect more money than we borrowed.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Like, we had to write a $60,000 check to borrow $50,000. I'm like, oh, this is a good idea or not.
This math seems weird.
I'm not sure how this banking thing works yet, but this seems a little bit odd.
It's rough.
So the last thing I want to chat with you guys about is just, so obviously you guys have been in positions where you have managers in place in your businesses.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that you guys have learned over the years as far as like either mistakes, or how do you go about either figuring out if like, do I need a manager, or like, how do I pay for a manager, or just that whole, because that's a big, it's a big bear, you know?
I think that I would say the hardest thing about, if you ever talk to anyone, particularly of the small business, and I think you'll agree, if anyone ever says like what's hard about running a business, you're like employees, people, staff, like that's always the big challenge. And for me,
well, you just hired a new manager at the coffee shop.
I did. I just hired a GM who worked for me 23 years ago, which is pretty awesome. And he was like one of the best guys I ever had. And he came back to me, now has like a wealth of experience. But I feel like it's my karma because I've been so bad. My biggest fault in managing is I'm too generous too soon. And I trust too easily. I've, had theft issues at my coffee house. Most recently had some pretty, like I had my eye off the business a little too much, a little too focused on the gym, and gave a lot of trust to someone who was a manager. And like, I don't even want to, like, I mean, it was bad.
Well, there's two lessons there. One, you need to stay connected to your business, but you don't need to be a laborer or an employee in your business. So you build your spec ops team, you build your team of people that are going to run your business for you. I think you should try to build a business that you can walk away from at any moment and the business still runs. In order to do that, you have to develop a team of people that can do that for you. One of them would be a general manager. So you need to embody trust in growth and mentor that relationship. At the same time, you still have to be engaged.
Yeah, there's to be some oversight.
Where your mistake was, there was like a little bit of absentee owner because you have a lot of things going on and over trusting that person, thinking that they were doing a good job without kind of rechecking it.
Yeah.
But that's a viable lesson because for your new manager now, you're still keeping tabs and you're grooming and teaching and learning. And as he's running your business, you're in there and he understands that. And it's just working out so much better. And same thing for the gym.
It's same thing happened for the gym.
Yeah.
If you have someone around for a long time, they can be good, but like,
they get complacent.
People get complacent. I think people develop a sense of entitlement to a certain degree, especially if they're seeing like numbers coming in and they're like, oh, the gym's making all this money. You know, I know, we had a big move and that cost us like $500,000. And like, high five. We have 6 more loan payments on the one loan.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Super cheap loan. We didn't pay it off because it's like almost free money.
3.5%.
Yeah, it's almost free money. We're like, well, you just leave that. Yeah.
So what are some of the safeties that you like with hindsight, like if you're bringing on a general manager, like what are some things that you like now put in place to make sure that you just kind of like that you can execute on the trust but verify piece, which is like, you're going to give this thing, but like, I still need to make sure that there's like parameters in place that we can make sure that you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Super clear written expectations, I think are like really important. And I mean, I've known this forever and I've always said it, but I always forget it and don't act on it. But it's like, it's much easier to get nicer than it is to get tougher. You're not managing people's expectations if you're super cool and then you have to like throw down the hammer and like be tough. Like they don't like it. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
So I think setting very high expectations from the get-go and some kind of accountability.
Yes.
We were both at the gym, both of us did this, and at my coffee house. I didn't have enough accountability in place for either place. Too trusting. And then what happens is, I think the thing that you forget is like, hey, you can have a great employee. Everyone's not an entrepreneur. Somebody could be a really good worker, but like all of us, we don't need accountability because we're always going to try, you know what I mean? But that's seriously, I think at this point, I think that's really like the 1%. Yeah. Like even a really great manager with no accountability, it's kind of easy to slide down.
Because one of the things that I've found to be effective is kind of the reverse, right? So like I think about it, if I wanted to, I kind of reverse engineered it, and this is what I do now. Because I'm like an entrepreneurial spirit and I'm like independent, want to be left alone. So how do I get my boss to leave me alone? I'm like, I give him way more information than he wants. So now I go the other way, which is I demand a ton of information so that we're on the same page. And once I'm consistently getting what I want, then I'll start to back off. But at first it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Give me the numbers. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know.
That's how I like.
But I didn't do that at first. I was just like, you're good. I like you. We're friends. Like, good job.
Yeah. I do it like you do. Andrea always yells at me because I'm fucking tough. Like, but my expectations are really, really, really high. And I expect you to perform really, really, really high. Right. So I'm super hard, make them earn, make them work hard.
But there's a balance.
There's a balance. And she helps me out with that balance. But the same thing what you're saying, Fern, is like, so you set this expectation really, really high, and everybody's going to strive to reach that expectation no matter what. So if they fail a little bit, man, I'm getting so much more than what their little expectation was.
Yeah.
You know? And then you, like you say, you reel it back in where you almost not necessary because they're trying to please or still trying to reach that expectation on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So you're in a much better position, I think, to over-expect than to under-expect.
Well, I think it's all about, it's the initial investment. You need to invest the time and the energy
with that person,
with whoever it is, in getting them to, and in being accountable, getting a lot of information from them, keeping that communication really tight. all of that kind of stuff. And that's what's easy to miss, especially when you're growing really fast and you're really busy. It's easy to like, and I don't know if you have this, but there's a certain amount of time, even if like, we don't have to be in our gym.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to coach. We don't like, it runs, knock on wood, pretty darn well. However, you can't really put a finger on it, but there's a certain amount of time, if both of us are not plugged in enough, you can feel when shit's starting to get, do you know what I mean? It's
no,
like,
I absolutely. It's like so, and it doesn't even mean you have to be involved in anything sometimes.
No.
We're just like, you simply have to be in the building. Like people are like, oh shit,
he's here.
Boss is here regularly, so we can't mess around. Like we have to do what we're supposed to do. I think it's the same thing like on seminar staff. Like like for the longest time, like I don't, it never happens anymore, but you guys remember the day back in the day, like when the flow master's like, listen, David or coach can walk in here at any point,
like,
any point. And for years I was like, maybe he is going to walk in here. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to do my job and not mess this up. This is a good thing. So
yeah. You know, it's funny. We brought on like 3 or 4 new coaches this last couple of weeks or whatever. And I always make it a point to, when it's their time to run like their first couple classes, to not be in the gym. Because when I'm here, it just flusters them, you know?
Yeah.
So like, go ahead, man, do your thing. It's going to be great. I'll pop in, you know, later on down the road just to kind of check you out. Because, hey, I don't know why.
Sometimes what I'll do is like, because there's plenty of places for me to kind of like, not necessarily hide, but not necessarily be in view of the coach. Mm-hmm. So I'll pop in at certain times when they're running a class or something like that and just kind of be around. They don't know that I'm there. And if maybe something's not going the way that I want, maybe I'll just kind of like walk through the gym real quick. And all of a sudden, like it goes significantly better. You know, I'll just kind of like walk through. I won't say anything. I'm just kind of like make my presence known. And they're like, oh, and all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, I'm late, you know?
So the goal is this, right? I think the goal is this. Can I have my presence or you and your presence in the gym when you're not there? It's someone else going to take the reins and make that possible. So I feel very lucky because we have a couple of people that are tight.
Yeah.
They walk in, people are like, oh, dang, all right, this person's here, you know, and you can just feel it. Yeah. So I think that's the goal, because then you actually I think you have a real business where, hey, man, you don't need to be there. You know, everything's going great. Yeah, check in. And going back to like your general manager stuff, I think that having some kind of routine kind of check in, how are things going at whatever time interval you want to set up, because that person's I think it's going to help with that accountability, because they're like, oh, you know what, I have a Monday morning report or every other Friday report or whatever. I do mine sporadically, which is kind of cool, but having some kind of routine or something that just says, yeah, man, you're responsible. I'm still here. I'm maybe not here every single day, but I'm still here thinking about this, looking at this, you know, it's still a business.
It's stating the obvious, but I realized from what you said, Fern, like the problem I think is that typically if you're an entrepreneur, you don't like being micromanaged.
Right.
Hate it.
And you don't want to micromanage people, because it's easier to do shit yourself than to keep tabs on someone else doing stuff. So I think that's why it's really hard with that type of personality to then hire and train people effectively, because not only do you not need that kind of training, you don't do well with it. You know, like, so it's hard to take yourself out of the equation. And I do have to remind Chris on a frequent basis, like, this is not a tier 1 asset. These are civilians. Like, we are dealing with regular people.
But so that's where I was actually going to go with this next one is like, I've had more than a couple people tell me that just straight up, they're just like, I don't know how people work here. Like it's and listen, like I'm not this weird, you know, dictator or anything like that. But it's what you said, Chris, like the expectation is high. And if you don't meet it, I don't feel there being any value in beating around the bush about missing the mark. It's just like, it's not personal, but like some people are wildly uncomfortable with that. They're just like, you know, when after somebody's in a class, I'm like, hey, that class was late. We can't do that. Like, here's where you lost your time. You need to fix it, period. Like, I'm not mad at you, but that's just where we're at. Like, it's just like, you have to fix that, you know? But some people they're just like, I don't know how people deal with this type of expectation. And I'm like, then it just might not be for you. Like, I don't know what to say.
Chris is constantly saying this. It's like, oh yeah, I love you as a human being. Totally. I'll have dinner with you, hang out with you, but I can't use you on my team.
Can't do it.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. One coach this morning, not brand new coach, but leading his first couple classes or whatever. And he's talking, okay. And he's going on the WOD, okay. And then we're going to do some burpees, okay. Then we're going to run, okay. I wrote on the board, I'm like, stop saying okay. You know what he did?
Okay.
He stopped saying okay.
Oh, he did.
He did, right away. Like, oh, okay.
All right.
I'm saying okay. I was like,
I wasn't even aware I was saying okay, but okay.
1,000 every other word, you know.
But yeah, but I think most people, and I don't want to say it's a generational thing, but most people have not been in a community or in a group where the feedback was that free flowing, where it was just okay for everybody involved, you know, for somebody to say either up or down, you suck.
Yeah.
Not you as a person. You did not do well at that thing, and it needs to get corrected.
Yeah. But so ask yourself this, and me and Andrew always kind of debate about, hey man, we're striving for excellence, right? We're striving for magnificence here. So why can't I push people to be magnificent? Why can't I have that high expectation? Like, why do I need to settle for less than that? I don't think I need to settle for less than that. I don't think I need to surround myself with people that don't want to be better. You know, they might not reach way up here, whatever I'm looking for, but man, they're still striving to be better. They're still striving to be excellent, striving to be magnificent. Like, I don't feel like I need to. I just don't feel like I need to freaking compromise. I just don't feel like I need to, you know?
There's no value in it. And what I act accordingly. There's just what I think long term, and I think the problem with this is a long term game, which is like, is if you set that standard, now the standard becomes the filter. People who know they're not going to do well there don't show up anymore.
Hey,
you know, or if they do, they quickly come to the realization, be like, this is not for me, but thanks.
It's not for me, I'm out. Yeah. I'm like, that's cool, man. There's a lot of things you can do. It's like, hey, it's not for you. That's cool. I'm still going to love you, man. Look, I'm not going to hate you at all.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. Yeah. You know, but I just don't think I need to settle or compromise on what I believe in, you know? So.
And I think all that does is it attracts the right people to your business, people that do want to improve, people that are, you know, super goal oriented and see working for Chris and Andrea as value to them. They're like, hey, I'm going to get something out of being underneath, you know, being in their tutelage, and I'm going to learn some things I'm going to develop. And I've, you know, and this will unfold as, you know, when I die, but like, I look at the end of the day and I want my gym and my coaching staff to be probably some place where people go and they develop and they go to something better.
Somewhere else. Exactly.
Yeah.
That should be the point. That's what I think we're trying to do too. It's like, man, you know what? This isn't a end state. This is like on your way to greatness, you know, on your way to something else that you want to do, because you should want to do something else besides this. Make some significant impact. Be great, you know, and like, hey, use this as a place to learn, to educate, to mentor, to try, to fail, to inspire, you know, do all those things while you're here. And then when it's time for you to go, man, I'm gonna give you a big old hug, a high five, and like, what else can I do for you? You know? Yeah,
and hand you off to the next big thing. Be like, hey, I've got resources available to you. Like, where do you want to go? Like, I can push you in that direction. You know?
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to hold. I think that's one thing that's hard is when a lot of times when people are in business, they get really myopic, and if they have a really good employee, they fear so bad losing them that they just want to hang on too tight, and or you just the thought of replacing someone. And I definitely think I've done that with managers in the past. I just didn't want to deal with the hassle of replacing them at that time. So I kind of compromised or like, you know, but then I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. Now you need to go and I'll figure it out. But I think the way to be is we've actually now been in this space. We have had more people, like we have a guy leaving who's been great. He joined the Army and leaving not in an opportune time, the end of the summer. But it's like suddenly the universe just provided like, more people came than I was like, oh snap, like this has been cool, you know. Keep going.
And it's like, what are you gonna do? You gotta put some heads there, you gotta have some people like, it's gonna be all right. Somehow it's gonna be all right.
We will be just fine.
We're gonna be all right. Somehow it's gonna work. I don't know how yet, but it's gonna work out. And we got some new great faces in, you know, it's super cool.
good
Yeah,
energy.
it's funny. We're talking about, this is kind of a pass-through space. I'm super proud of the fact. I bet you, I don't know the exact number. How many coaches have we had that's come in and opened up another gym? What do you think? Chad, Ellen, Jamie. I bet you like 5 or 6. Yeah, about 5 or 6 coaches have started here as, an assistant coach, moved up to our head coach. They've gone off and opened up their own CrossFit space somewhere. And I'm like, that's pretty freaking cool.
Most people would be afraid of that, but I think that is probably the mark of like true leadership in my mind. I think of it as like, like professional coaches, how many assistant coaches under that coach have gone on to be a head coach, and you're like, that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I think for, just like you said, I think for both of us, like both of us have a passion for not just developing coaches, but like developing people, like better humans. Mm-hmm. Like same as at my shop, like they're not coaching, but like, hey, I want them to leave better than they came in.
Yeah.
It's not about just taking something from them. Like it's not just an exchange of like money for work. It's like we take pride and pleasure in seeing other people grow and do well and be happy. Like that's, what makes things meaningful. Like anyone can make money, I'm not anyone.
True.
Some people.
That's true too. Yeah. Not everybody can make money. I mean? That's another thing. Cool. Well, listen, Chris, I know you got to get on that bike and go for a ride. This was amazing. Like if this never saw the light of day, this would have just been beneficial for me. But I think everybody who listens to the podcast is going to get a tremendous amount of value out of this. So thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
You're so awesome, Brian. We got to get together in person for real.
We do. I need to just make a trip up there. And
it's funny. It's like 3 hours away and like, actually, the traffic.
A few of our seal pups are stationed down there now. So we were talking about.
I know they're at my gym.
Oh yeah, I sent them.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. So yeah, Kyle and Matt Kyle and Thomas.
Yep.
Good.
Yep. I don't remember which one, but one of them I think just kicked out the door.
That's Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas. Yeah.
But they'll be back, and the other one's still there. So very cool. What I think, so we're doing like a box tour, which the first one's going to be in November. We're going to start in the Raleigh area, and we're going to do like basically like a YouTube mini series where we're going to drop in 10 boxes in 5 days, and we're going to basically create 10 episodes out of it. And then after that, we have to figure out where we're trying to do one a quarter moving forward. So we might come up to the DC area just because we can get everything in close proximity where we don't have to do much travel. But we're trying to highlight gyms that are doing it well and expose the community to,
good and the bads.
Getting better. Realistically, it's just like, hey, like, if we're all in here and we really love CrossFit, like, well, how do we make the global community better? And which is like, hey, we give everybody the tools to be like Chris and Andrea, or like, CrossFit Louvre and Daniel Chaffee and folks like that who are doing it and doing it really, really well, because there's no reason that CrossFit as a whole can't be like some of those big franchises and brands, like running good businesses. And it's like, that's what we want to do, is we want to eliminate all excuses for people to suck. You're like,
I love it.
You suck. It's just that's on you. Like that's a willing decision that you made,
And I'm mad at you because you're making my product look good because you suck. Get better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, I appreciate it. And, if you guys have any questions, hit us up, drop some comments in the comment section, and we'll be happy to get you guys in touch with Chris and Andrea if you guys want to reach out to them. But thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Vern.
Have a good day, Bubba.
Yep.
Enjoy.